Uh, Welcome and thank you for joining us today in the Indonesia-Europe Business Forum 2022. I'm Timothy Marbun. I hope you're all well wherever you are, and I will be moderating our panel discussion today. We hope you had the chance to catch our two previous sessions yesterday, which focuses on strengthening the global healthcare and energy transition, while today, we complete our talk with our third panel discussion, focusing on global trade and supply chain resilience. Now, we will be hearing from experts who will share their knowledge and also their firsthand experience facing the challenges that has affected the global trade and the supply chain globally, and most excitingly, how they navigated through and also recovered stronger. Now, before I introduce our panel, we will start today's event with an opening remark from the Deputy Foreign Minister of the Republic of Indonesia, His Excellency Mahendra Siregar. The screen is yours, Excellency.
Excellencies, distinguished participants, panelists, ladies and gentlemen, very good morning to colleagues from Europe and very good afternoon for colleagues here in Indonesia. It is my great pleasure to be here to take part in this panel discussion and opening up for a very relevant theme: global trade and supply chain resilience. Dear colleagues, I think we all know that the last 2 years have been very tough and difficult for our economic development, trade situations, and of course, our social health and other aspects of life due to the pandemic. Despite their situation, countries are showing resilience in their economic structure, economic recovery. Also, Indonesia has shown the strong rebound from a very severe impact of the pandemic in the last 2 years. If I may brief and update colleagues for what has happened in Indonesia very recently, showing where we are now. First, the economy of Indonesia in 2021 grew by 3.6%. That basically put the economy stronger than the pre-pandemic level. The most important part of that growth was the two main drivers. First, it was exports. Exports grew by 35% or even more in the year 2021. That put Indonesian export value for the whole year in the all-time record high, around $230 billion US. The other driver was the investment. Investment meets its target of around 1,000 trillion rupiah of last year. A combination between foreign direct investment as well as the local investment. In terms of the health and social condition, I'm happy to report to you that Indonesia has reached its 50% target of full vaccination program for the population. And we are aiming to achieve the 70% full vaccination program by the end of this quarter in 2022. And we have started the third vaccination or the booster program. And we also hope that by mid of this year, Indonesia will start producing its own vaccine. That has, in a way, positioned Indonesia in a much better economic, social, and health condition to continue sustainably the recovery. And of course, the recovery in all sectors is the theme that Indonesia is promoting for our presidency of the G20. Because we understand that one country recovery would not be possible without the recovery of all countries in the world. And that's why we have the tagline of recover together, recover stronger. Dear colleagues, despite this recovery, we have learned the lessons, and some of them through the hard way. The challenge that we had to face during the pandemic, the risk of having the existing international or global value chain that has put us in an unnecessary risk that otherwise would not cause our difficulties during the pandemic even more difficult. We had to endure the situation where the global value chain only took place in one or very few countries that created a great block or a lockdown, basically, for the whole international chain of a particular products and services. Indonesia did not escape from this situation. At one time, we did not have any supply available, even for our face masks and medical attire. But because of the pressure that was built upon that situation, the domestic and international value chains have changed. Now, Indonesia actually produces and exports a lot of this medical related equipments. We also experienced the same thing with the pharmaceutical products related to the COVID-19, but also for other medicines, and as well as the vaccines production. We also now still face the dire challenge with regard to the logistical system, where the previous system that we have been carried out for decades now become inefficient, if not unacceptable, at least from certainty and high cost situations. On top of that, unfortunately, we also have to face the uncertainty caused by the increased tension due to the geopolitical situation that many experts would predict would last at least 10 to 15 years. And on that note, it is very important for Indonesia to position itself, lesson learning from what we had in the past, and work with our partners, especially those in Europe, to look at what are the possibilities going forward. Indonesia has continued to improve its economic efficiency, investment climate, and structural reform. Among others, we have implemented the most, I think, and many experts and agencies agree, revolutionary legal or regulatory reform in the economic, investment procedure, and business environment that was carried out by the implementation of the job creation law, or also known as the Omnibus Law. We are implementing it while at the same time, as the largest presidential democracy in the world, Indonesia also has to honor the decision of the Supreme Court, which decided that we have to improve the mechanism in producing the law. On that note, I would like to update you that the Parliament is deliberating and hopefully in the next few weeks would issue a law that would allow the formulation and the issuance of the Omnibus Law. With that, then the Omnibus Law of the job creation is going to fulfill one of the decisions of the Constitutional Court. And the other one is that Indonesia will also improve the public consultation around the job creation law that is also required by the Constitutional Court decision. So it shows you that we are fully committed to implement the whole regulations related to the Omnibus Law itself. Another thing, we have also improved our trade, investment, and economic partnership with countries in the region and globally. As most of you have known, that Indonesia was the driving force behind the RCEP, the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, and now is in the implementing process. We have been now experiencing also the fruit of the Indonesia-EFTA Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement in its full implementation. At the same time, we have been launching series of new initiatives with regard to FTA, RTA, and CEPA with many countries around the world. And last, but certainly not least, Indonesia today has become more industrial, added value manufacturing centers. If you look at the exports of Indonesia last year, figure showed that 50% of the exports were contributed by added value industries. This shows that Indonesia is committed to ensure that we are developing and improving the quality of our industries. That is the only way to prevent the middle income drop. Indonesia learned that lesson from its own, but also from other countries. And that is why it is critical for us also to look at the possibilities in continue improving the quality of our industries. So based on these elements, Indonesia's strong rebound from the pandemic, Indonesia's ability to continue its structural, economic, and business environment reform continuously, and our success, but yet still early stage, to improve its industrial quality, to ensure that we will not have to endure the middle income trap situation, and of course, our open and strong appetite for economic partnerships with many countries around the world. And as you could also see from the geopolitical references, Indonesia's free and active foreign policy have put Indonesia in a very strategic position of not being part of any international military alliance, but at the same time, very actively contribute to the global and regional peace and stability, have put Indonesia very strategically as a location, as an opportunity, as a partner for those who would like to improve its global value chain position to ensure that it will not have to face again the same situation like we had in the last 2 years. So with that, I welcome the webinar, the discussion on this theme, and look forward to work with you all in implementing the recommendations and suggestions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, His Excellency, for delivering the prelude for today's event. And as we've heard there, there's much work to be done, and there's much areas that we need to cover since that we're talking about the global trade, also the supply chain. Now, we know that the supply chain has been immediately affected from every aspect during the pandemic, and we've learned so much from what has happened, just the extent of just how bad can a sudden stop be and how to survive it. But we all know as well, recovery is still on its way. There's much work to be done there. Now we've got to work together, maybe not work together just in difficult times, but also in recovering for better times. Now, have you seen the speakers? You've seen that we have very great speakers for today that could share their experience. And therefore, I would like to introduce our speakers to you. Our first speaker has led the Indonesian delegation for various trade negotiations and concluded 7 bilateral trade negotiations, namely the Indonesia-Korea SEPA and also the Indonesia-Australia SEPA. And she is a recipient of the top 3 Best Government Officials 2021 for Achievement, Leadership, and Innovation from the Ministry of State Apparatus, and now sits as the Director of Cooperation for Export Development in the Ministry of Trade. We welcome Ms. Nimade Ayu Martini. Ms. Martini, how are you?
Very good, thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, thank you for joining us. Our next speaker is a very well-known Indonesian businesswoman, Syntesa Group, which she owns and also leads as CEO, operates in property, energy, industrial products, and consumer products. Forbes Asia awarded her as one of the 50 powerful businesswomen for 3 years, while she was also chosen as one of the 30 best CEOs by Business Indonesia in 2015 and 2017. And now more recently, she has also been elected to serve as chairperson of B20 Indonesia during the Indonesian presidency of the G20 Summit 2022. We welcome Ms. Sinta Wijaya Kamdani. Ms. Kamdani, how are you?
Fine, thank you very much.
Good to see you again here. Now, our next speaker is a woman, a mother, and an entrepreneur with an international background. Her belief in the bright future of Italy has led her to be nominated Vice President of Confindustria Vicenza, responsible for education and university, which later on led her to a new mandate for internationalization. Now, currently, she is the head of communications of AFV Beltrame Group, the most important Italian player in the steel manufacturing industry. We welcome Ms. Barbara Beltrame Giacomello. Ms. Giacomello, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you very much. Hello, everyone.
Thank you for joining us. And our next speaker is a father of 2 with over 30 years experience in the Spanish public administration. He has held a number of relevant positions in government departments, among others, Vice Secretary General of the Prime Minister's Office, Chief of Staff for the Director General of Trade and Investment at the Ministry of Economy, Assistant Deputy Director General for Foreign Investments in Spain's Ministry of Industry, Trade and Tourism, and now sits as International Director in Spain's Chamber of Commerce. We welcome Mr. Jaime Montalvo. Mr. Montalvo, how are you?
Fine, thank you. A very good morning to everyone.
Thank you very much for joining us.
It's a pleasure being here. Thank you.
Now, to our participants, you may also submit your questions for our panelists. You can use the Q&A option on your Zoom screen. And later on, we'll have a Q&A session after the discussion where I will be reading out your questions. So please do submit your questions. Now, first thing we got to talk about is the experience that everyone here has gone through. I'll start with Giacomello. Your thoughts on how the global trade and what the supply chain globally has been going through, and have we recovered yet throughout the pandemic?
Okay, so thank you very much, Timothy. Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I would like to say I'm honored to attend the Indonesia European Business Forum as a representative of Confindustria, the Italian Confederation of Industry. I want to give a special thanks to Mr. Siregar, Vice Minister for Foreign Affairs of Indonesia, and to all the speakers attending this panel. 2021 has been an extraordinary year with the B20 Italy. I'm sure that a great commitment will continue in 2022 with the B20 Indonesia. I believe that this meeting can be a good occasion to discuss and understand how we can take advantage of emerging opportunities. Protectionism and unilateralism have become even stronger with the pandemic, and new barriers continue to be imposed. But from crisis come opportunities, and our industry system can deal successfully with the post-pandemic challenges. For Italy, in this context, Indonesia represents a key partner, both for commercial and for investment. Before the COVID crisis, trade flow between our countries was about 3.1 billion euros. In the first 10 months of 2021, our trade recovered from the 2020 losses with a plus 21.5%. There are encouraging numbers, but there is still room for implementation. According to our organization, there is still a great potential for cooperation, especially for high-value goods. For this reason, new investment on 4.0 technology represent a powerful levers to face the new challenges and to improve economic relations. Also, competitiveness is more and more depending on the integration in the global value chain, and the capacity to move up into higher added value processing is crucial, especially again for small medium enterprises. Today, our industrial system, both Indonesian and European, are focusing on the implementation of reform program to boost productivity and modernizations. Huge stimulus packages are being displayed in our economies, but the amount of researchers supporting investment is unprecedented, and this is a unique occasion to fill the existing gaps. The Italian industry system has engaged the government in a meaningful reform agenda based on the researches of the National Recovery and Resilience Plan. Strong investments are being put in place. The aim is promoting a new approach to industrial policies with long-term objectives. On the other side, as Industrial Confederation and together with our institution, we are making big effort to support companies on international market. Our aim is to encourage the creation of smart manufacturing ecosystem in a cross-border cooperation. The current challenges require a systematic shift by reinforcing international cooperation and reshaping multilateral governance. Trade and investment can play a crucial role in fighting the effect of the pandemic, accelerating the economy recovery and promoting an inclusive and sustainable growth. For this reason, the B20 Trade and Investment Task Force, which I had the honor to chair last year, delivered a concrete policy recommendation. The achievement of the target would yield an additional G20 trade value of about $1.4 trillion, equal to some $8.9 trillion of GDP increase. To accomplish this mission, the B20 Trade and Investment Task Force has identified 4 policy recommendations to drive actionable change. The first one is promoting open market and reforming the WTO. To turn the pandemic crisis into an opportunity for all, we must reverse the protectionist loop. The second one is about enhancing trade representative against future disruption and enable more resilient global value chain. The third one is about encouraging the participation in global trade of all businesses, in particular small enterprises, by removing barriers and improving their access to trade finances. The last one is to aim of making trade and investment impactful drivers of sustainable development and increase foreign direct investment. To conclude, the future of our relation will depend on how we will match our weakness and strength. If we succeed, our economy will have a leading role in driving the future growth on a regional base. This event today is starting point to join force and explore innovative partners approach. This is also an important opportunity to understand how we can work together, share tools and competence for the sustainable and longer-term growth. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Jacobello. We'll try to touch upon more about what plans or what you would also like to see from the Indonesian counterparts, so that could increase this cooperation and partnership. But moving on first to Ms. Martini, we'd also like to know the Indonesian government's take on how the global trade has recovered and what plans do we have, especially with the European counterparts.
Okay. Thank you very much, Timothy. It's good to be here. Thank you for inviting me to this very august occasion, Indonesia-Europe Business Forum. First of all, I think I'd like to start with the policy or trade policy of the Indonesian government. For the past 9 years until now, even in the midst of crisis, actually it hasn't changed much. We very consistently opening up. We engage in trade negotiations, as Vice Minister Mahendra Siregar mentioned earlier. 3-prong of trade diplomacy, bilaterally, regionally, and multilaterally at the same time. What changed now is the disruption happened around us. But I think I agree with the previous speaker. Challenges or crisis brings also opportunity, and this is what we see. And I think the consistent trade policy or economic policy by President Jokowi 9 or 8 years ago bear fruit now, and we are very much into the climbing up the value chain, whereby we saw the result today. If you see top 30 of Indonesian product or Indonesian product, let's say, or export, are from top 30 of Indonesian product and share of 90%. But what interesting is that last year we hit the record high of our export, as Vice Minister Mahendra also mentioned, 231.5 billion US dollars. This is the highest. If you say, or some may argue, this is because of super cycle. If you see the super cycle in 2008, yeah, it was the first time we hit 150 billion US dollars. And this only match, today's situation only match in 2012. But what changed is that the structure of our export, okay? In 2011 or 11 years ago, it was based on commodities. But now or today is top 5 of Indonesian export were based on manufacture. Yeah, in 2011 it was coal, CPO, rubber, electronics, metal ore. but now CPO, yes, coal, steel, electronics, and automotive. And this is something I think the direction of our government towards the increase the value added. And this value added happened, I agree with the previous speaker also, because of the investment. So a combination of policy, the opening up, and also strategy to diversify not only our product, as I said, from natural resources base to manufacture base now, more and more, and also diversification of market itself. We have 7 trade agreements bilaterally, meaning that it opens up the opportunity or access for our market globally, and also regionally, like RCEP in ASEAN plus with the trading partners. So I think we are quite optimistic given the numbers, the data that we have. We're quite optimistic going ahead. But of course, we have to be cautious at the same time. There are a lot of things going on that is out of our control. But I think with the consistency of the policy that we have, we believe our export performance will be consistent. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Martini. Before I go to Ms. Sinta Kamdhani, I'd just like to check if Ms. Giacomello is still with us. Since Ms. Giacomello will have to leave early due to another agenda. Ms. Giacomello, are you still with us? Okay, I wanted to ask another question if we have the time, but anyway, however, of course, she has another agenda before we could end this meeting. We also thank her for providing time that she had for us today. Now, moving on to Ms. Sinta Kamdhani. So you might want to add to what Martini also said, how we have shifted and how you see that this has affected, especially in Indonesia's position in the global trade and also in the supply chain, and how it has been for the last 2 years.
Yes, also, Timothy, thanks again. I would like to thank the organizer for inviting me to basically give the business perspective on this your Indonesia-Europe event. And I think if we see the past 8 years, Indonesia has made progress in positioning itself as a regional alternative global industrial base. And the government, I think, is quite consistent in determined to promote reform which enable Indonesia to be an alternative global production base in the region. And I wanted to, why I feel that there are a few items that I would like to share. I think Indonesia role and contribution to the global supply chain, as well as realize the drive to become a global production base, based on first, I think we've seen the biggest reform of Indonesia through the Omnibus Law, or the law, we call it Law of Job Creation, Law number 11, 2020. And this really give greater investment market access for foreign business in almost all business categories. So this helps in opening investment. And also we look at the single window and transparent investment administration process, and this really helps in easing the licensing process and so forth, with much simpler, speedier, and we also now have the risk-based investment license system. And of course, this improve in how we can do business, and therefore its commitment on its reform through the Omnibus will help to accelerate Indonesia and become this global production base as well. On the second item, I would say on the free trade, I think Bu Made has mentioned this. I think clearly we support this, that the Indonesian expansion trade agreement through the FTA, CEPA, PTA. I mean, right now we're doing a CEPA with EU. We already completed the RCEP. Obviously, this all helps as well to drive this effort, and commitment include also simplified the, as you know, the rules of origin and trade procedure, exchange and recognition of trade documents to ease the global trade connectivities. Also includes expansion of interoperable single windows with trading partners, primarily with ASEAN and its regional partner. The third aspect is also the national logistics system reform. And this is important to mention because it aims to also increase port performance, logistical services efficiency, and improve also trade facilitation. It's currently in its third phase, and adoption of national logistic ecosystem, which integrates port system with single window, logistic providers, banks, and etc. And the final thing, the fourth thing is, of course, in the context of the right now as Indonesia presidency, I think Pak Mahendra mentioned about G20 presidency, we are also hosting the B20, the Business Engagement Group of G20. We are also promoting the diversification of supply chain to include MSME as part of the B20 core agenda for inclusivity. And I think this notion is not only Indonesian business community efforts to promote inclusivity in the GVC, the global value chain. We also deem it as a strategic effort to improve the resilience in post-pandemic era. So understanding that the MSME can easily be integrated into the GVC, Indonesia is also promoting the so-called inclusive closed loop. So closed loop model as a comprehensive empowerment model for MSME, which scope will also cover more than merely financing empowerment to have greater participation in the global value chain with the assistance, of course, of government. So in the form of structural reform to accommodate also MSME and capacity building, and also private sector collaboration. So we are also fostering collaboration between MSME and the large business, multinational, and so forth. So I think it's also important to mention this and bringing how can MSME can also be bring into the supply chain through the big companies as well. And I think all this effort put together we clearly show, I mean, we have a long way to go, but clearly show the progress that we are going into that direction. As you know, so far, we are also relying a lot on import as well as raw materials and things like that. And we are now also improving our downstream as well as upstream industry. And this will help Indonesia on its dependency on the raw materials and enable Indonesia to really truly be a production hub for the region and globally. Thank you.
Thank you, Bu Sinta, and it will be interesting how to gain that trust for our MSMEs, and also as we go downstream, not just upstream. It involves a lot of trust from the other counterparts as well in Europe. And how could we build that? I guess from the government side, and also from those in the business or in the industry. Now, I'll go further into that later on. I'd like to go to Mr. Montalvo first. How is your take on the global economy here, and also the supply chain? And how is it in Spain? Have you seen recovery there?
Thank you, Timothy. Good morning, good afternoon to everyone. Allow me just to start thanking the kind invitation to join Indonesia Europe Business Forum and this very interesting panel on global trade and supply chain resilience together with very distinguished colleagues in the panel. It's a real pleasure being with all of you. Just before addressing your question, let me also express our deepest sadness and concern about what is going on in Europe, and also convey our greatest solidarity to the Ukrainian people. I think that's a terrible situation. We cannot overlook it. It will negatively affect all of us, and hopefully we'll come to an end of military operations, and we'll see what comes next. But I'd just like to make that previous remark. Obviously, Tim, coming back to your question, we have all shared a difficult context in the past 2 years, but looking at a broader perspective of what has happened with Spain, I'd like to say that yes, Spanish companies have diversified and especially have moved for the last decade to greater internationalization. That's along with what is needed for their competitiveness worldwide. Just to give you a very simple indicator, the degree of trade openness of Spain, which is the sum of exports and imports share on GDP, has moved in just 20 years from 47% to 67% of GDP. This signals not only a greater access of our companies to international market of goods and services, but also, and very significantly, a greater integration in global value chains. Another indicator on how important is trade for Spain, we take a 2% share on global trade, but we are only 1.6% of world GDP. So certainly Spain is an open economy. I think our strength for that process has been our diversified sectoral structure and the capability, our ability to gain productivity and of course in efficiency. Global value chains are about specialization, about greater efficiency, and our companies have profited from growth in trade and open markets. Our companies, however, have some weaknesses. In general, our exporters have a relatively small size compared to other European partners, and we have a medium technological intensity of some of our products. We need to move also up in the technological high value. We are, in this sense, moving in the same direction that Indonesia. And yes, we have also an independent, a certain focus, I would say, over-dependence on our European market. For the last 20 years, 2/3 of our exports have consistently been sent to Europe, and we need to diversify. Our challenge is to diversify into new markets, and namely Asian markets, where growth is going to take place. They're going to be leaders for growth, and I think both Vice Minister and our colleagues in the panel have pointed at the importance that Spain strengthens its Europe strengthens the view on Indo-Pacific region and in general strengthen alliances with Asia. Just one word on a comment on global value change. Certainly the pandemic and other structural factors have negatively impacted in the change. The pandemic has brought along the lockdowns and barriers to mobility that has resulted in bottlenecks in the supply chain. Of course, we have seen a specific problem in the maritime transport, which account for 90% of global trade in volume. And this has been not only due to shortage of ships and containers, but also in ports congestion. The pandemic has closed industries, port infrastructure, and that has certainly affected all of us, resulting in scarcity of not only medical supplies, but raw materials, electronic components that are critical for some industries like automotive. And we are facing, especially in this new geopolitical context, a high increase of prices and costs. We are recording a record 33-year high inflation in Spain, and we see that the industry is suffering from that. We need to do something about it, and this will certainly be through strengthening our alliances and coming back to a more connected international market. However, we are facing needs for strategic autonomy in the countries, a reshoring process to ensure that countries and industries can safely be sourced and consumers can have their products from. So yes, this conflict in Europe comes at a very bad moment. We are in the process of world recovery in the economies, in trade, and we have to push in that direction. You know, European countries and European organizations, we are very much engaged in the recovery, transformation, and resilience plan, and we are also trying not only to push on a more inclusive and sustainable agenda, but in making sure that we can have a multilateral framework, security, peace, and freedom. Those are the key elements for enhancing trade and investment. And Spain is certainly supporting all of that. Well, maybe in my next question, I can move into what we are expecting to do with Indonesia and the Asian region.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Montalvo. Yeah, I'd just like to add one question to that. Looking at how we have faced the situation during COVID, there must be a lot of lessons learned, especially on how to get goods moving during a situation like the pandemic, and we've seen a big halt there. Now, what have we learned so far, and do you think that we'd be better in facing, because we don't know what the future holds for us, we might be facing probably another crisis, economic crisis, or another crisis. Should we be better now in facing those disruptions?
I believe so. I think the pandemic has shown our resilience. The private sector, and I would say civil society, have responded greatly to the challenge, and governments have also done that. We have seen cohesion in Europe that we didn't see in the previous crisis. It's been amazing, and it's great news that European countries have agreed to put in place a very ambitious recovery plan with European funds. European Central Bank has also helped. And we have seen a public-private endeavor to face the situation. Science has helped. Of course, we are amazed on how quickly vaccines have been put into the market. I think we have many reasons to be optimistic on that. No? But our companies have been able to transform their production process to be able to cater for the needs of medical supplies. The supply chains in the food industry and for basic needs for the population have basically worked very well along the pandemic. And we have taken this crisis, if I may say, taking the words of my colleague, my Italian colleague, to create strengths. And of course, we have opportunities ahead that are in the new agenda of digital, sustainable growth, inclusive growth, and that's where European countries are engaged and our companies are engaged in that. This is not a public agenda, it's a public-private agenda, and we are moving into strategic projects altogether. The very important thing is that the new framework, as we hear in Indonesia, gets every day more conducive, so the private sector can play the role, and I think they're always up to the highest expectations.
Thank you, Mr. Montalvo. My next question is for Ms. Martini. The trade minister seems very optimistic as well into growing our market in the European area. What is, like, if we want to break it down to what we're going to focus on, will it still be in commodities, or as Ms. Sinta Kamdhani said, that we'd like to offer more value there as well? So what's the focus going to be, and where are we spreading our wings here in Europe in the near future?
Okay, thank you. Very interesting question. As I said earlier, in terms of policy, our trade policy is very consistent. Yeah, that we want to diversify, of course, our product, diversify our market, and also because of the pandemic now, the notion of, I know this is about later topic on SMEs, but I think it's very important to mention that how can we make sure that the micro, small, and medium enterprises also can be part of supply chains. It's very important because it's, for big companies, it's tough enough, let alone for them. So that's why Indonesian government has the policy, because they are backbone of our economy, right? The share for our GDP is 62%, and the labor creation, I got data here, 97%. So it's very important. So what the government does is, this regardless of the market, even to Europe, how can we make sure that these SMEs also can be partnering, collaboration? I want to stress these collaborations. So I know it's a tough time at the moment, but this share equally to every one of us, all exporters in the world. The question, how long can we sustain and can we face this problem until? So a lot of input and feedback came to us. Some of them, it depends on the sector. Yeah, some sector can be creative enough to overcome this issue. They collaborate, with the small and medium enterprises, even micro, to bring them as part of the value chains. I'll take the example on home decor, because with my current job, I deal a lot with home decor furniture, for example. Everyone thought, even they themselves, the associations thought, okay, this is tough. I don't think the growth will be high. And guess what? 30% growth last year, to their surprise as well. And what happened is, during this pandemic, they or people or families need more chair for them to use for Zoom meeting like this. Before they only need one, now their children, their wife, husband, and so on and so forth. So the growth is very double up. I mean, they set the growth only 16%, this association, and now it's 30%. So this is great. So now we don't want to be complacent. So how can we make sure that next year, when the world opening up, when hopefully trade is get back to a normalcy, so to speak, so this system for them to overcome the logistic is being addressed, and also how can this medium enterprise can get the micro as a I don't want to say subcontract, but they can work together. And this is where government come in. What kind of support that they need? Is it financial? Is it insurance? Is it capacity building? So we have all this program, and the presidents asked us this past 2 years. So make sure, take care of the SMEs because they are vulnerable. At the same time, they're actually very strong. To Europe, it's the same thing. I mean, we have European, in my job now, we have a partner with Germany, Netherlands, Swiss as well, to source from Indonesia. What kind of sourcing? Sustainable sourcing for light wood, for example. This is just an example. Again, on furniture and also home decor, they need it. How can we collaborate? How can be the price that the setting is fair for the SMEs? Otherwise, we don't speak the same language. So I want to add that, in terms of strategy to Europe, to anywhere else, actually.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Martini. I'm going to Bu Sita Kandani. We know that you've talked about small and medium enterprises and how we could try to push that as well into the global value chain or supply chain as well. My question, as I said previously, is how could we build that trust, especially when we're talking to our European counterparts, that trust that we live up to their quality level that they demand, and we can supply the numbers that they want, and we can have a consistency there. Is this the government's job, or is it the business side to ensure that to the government, or how can we build that to ensure that the numbers increase from Indonesia?
Yeah, I think when we talk about SMEs, this is on its own actually, because I think we, of course, government has been trying to also and support, but when we talk about export market, it's not about just access to market, but also I think this is really key, that government need, I think, to work also with business, and especially I talk about the big businesses to also work together in order to build this right ecosystem for the SME. So I do believe that government can't work alone. Yes, it's provide the support and the policies, but I think need the business to be a part of it and develop this together. And I think identifying SMEs, I mean, there's so many potential, and we've seen over the COVID also, of course, many SMEs are impacted, but also many was able to show in themselves on picking up and taking really opportunities for this during this pandemic, and being able to export their product to the global market. And I do believe that there are maybe 3 aspects that's very important, right? One is when we talk about products, we talk about, of course, the standard, right? And I think it's always we always talk about the standard certification, what is required. So this is an important factor, because when a lot of our SMEs product, they want to go to the export market, they need to have certain certification, they need to have certain standards. So they need a lot of support, especially on this in terms of training. Work we have workshop to going into certain market, export market, for them to understand, what are needed. The second also, when we talk about economic of scale, right? Because production is a very big issue. Even for big companies, it's an issue, more or less for the SMEs. And this is why we are encouraging the partnership as well, SME, to be part of the supply chain of the big companies. Because on standing alone, the production capacity is usually quite limited for SMEs to be able to deliver what is demand, the market demand. So sometimes they have a good product, but they have issues in producing in the right the scale with the with the right cost. So the economic of scales, I think, play a very, very big role. And this is why China has been very successful, because they're able to have that economic of scales, which Indonesia is still lacking at this point. So we need support in that, and that's, we need to work out how SME can be supported. And I think the third aspect is also on financing. We've been talking about financing a lot, and I think government has been also with financing for export. They've been helping, but financing, access to finance is a very, very big part for SMEs, because again, to stand alone and having access to the financial with the right cost structure, I think it's something that is needs to definitely be paid attention. So I would say this the three item is a major thing. Yeah, of course we need like all us business, of course, market intelligence of information of the destination of export is important. Which country, which demand products are needed, so we know, what kind of product for which market, that those market intelligence information. Who are our competitors in that market? Vietnam mainly, are our main competitors. So those information of market intelligence, of course, is also important, but that's not just for SMEs. It's for all businesses. Is crucial.
So in support, do you also mean like support within internally, like a strategy within Indonesia itself? We see what some countries do with the SMEs, as you said, they jump onto the more known or bigger brands as well. So these bigger brands in Indonesia use these SMEs as one of their suppliers. Is this the strategy that we could take up? And probably later we could also get Mr. Montalvo to also respond to this. Would this work better also in European countries?
Yes, I think for Indonesia, definitely. I think this is one of the strategy to include SMEs in the supply chain of the bigger companies. And I think we talk about also, logistic. Logistic is a very big part of it. Kadin now is establishing the Indonesia Trading House, actually primarily for SMEs to go export. Because why? Because we need to also help them and assist them with the logistic aspect. They need to have the right distribution in the destination market. They need to have the warehouse, and this is it's not easy for small companies. So we are trying to bring clustering and bring together many SMEs and facilitate them to have a trading house so they can use this facility. So many of this effort needs to be done, because they can't be just left alone and go directly on their own for export market. Of course, technology, e-commerce has helped a lot. And therefore, we are also now encouraging using the platform, e-commerce platform, for transaction and doing marketing to even to certain markets. So we are now combining a lot of the efforts, and Kadin is playing also the facilitator role, so that many SMEs can be put together, and then we drive and support them.
Yeah, so support that is much needed, I believe. I'm pretty sure that some are even just clueless on how to reach that. Now, a response from Mr. Montalvo, would that work better? Like, as we've just talked with Ibu Sinta Kamdani, would that work better into gaining the trust of European markets, or helping these SMEs entering the European market when they ride on the bigger names, when they ride on brands that or companies that have already gained trust in the European market?
Thank you, Tim. Well, it all helps, for sure. It all helps. I very much agree with both Ms. Martini and Ms. Kandami on their messages. Where we certainly have the challenge of incorporating a greater number of SMEs into our trade and investment flows. And that's a role where chambers of commerce are especially active. I'm sure that as a chairwoman of the Indonesian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Mrs. Kandami has a lot to say and to share with us in terms of experiences in helping SMEs scale, because of course the size is an important barrier to expand operations internationally. So we need to create platforms. We need to help companies integrate with each other. And there are many programs that we normally conduct at the chambers. In the case of the Chamber of Spain, similarly to other European chambers, we are intermediary body of the government for European funds. With this funding, we carry out a great variety of competitiveness programs in innovation, internationalization, digitalization, training, and entrepreneurship. So yes, it is important that we provide support from both public-private organizations, but the role of big companies is very relevant. I think I mentioned that before. We are engaged in the recovery plan of Europe, and especially in Spain, in what we call strategic interest projects that are not a matter of tenders from the government. They are public-private initiatives where big companies are leading. We're talking about sustainability, energy-related, mobility-related projects, but where there is a participation of smaller companies, and we see that there are great opportunities for smaller companies to work hand by hand with the bigger ones. In terms of trademarks, in terms of reputation, it is clear that the bigger companies carrying out projects or having very relevant trademarks can play let's say a country brand effect that will help the smaller ones. But we have to play we have to play wisely our chances. I think smaller companies have also niche opportunities, and we need to bring to them information and potential partners to tap on those opportunities.
Okay.
So yes, we are very much aligned in this.
Now, Mr. Montalvo, you also mentioned previously that you would like to talk more upon the direct partnership between Indonesia and Spain. Now, what opportunities do you see that could boost trade between our two countries?
Thank you. Well, the first thing I would like to say is that yes, as Barbara mentioned before, we have a great potential in terms of trade and investment. We are a little bit under Italian figures. Our trade with Indonesia in 2019, global trade was about $2.5 billion, but a great imbalance in favor of Indonesia because of export of raw materials, palm oil, so on and so forth. Well, in terms of investment, there are almost no investments, relevant investments of Indonesia in Spain, and there are some increasing investment of Spain in Spanish companies in Indonesia. But we see a great scope of opportunities in Spain, Indonesia, in different grounds or for different reasons. Number one, we've heard the Vice Minister and I've heard my colleagues on the prospect for Indonesia growth, which are very positive. We have an increasingly industrialized country, increasingly diversified country, and the Indonesian agenda matches very much with the European agenda of areas for growth, both in goods and services in a number of sectors. And we believe that Spanish companies have a good brand reputation in Indonesia. So the market, the Indonesian market itself, is a market of opportunity for us. The Spanish and European market is for sure a very interesting one for Indonesian companies. But we have also talked about RCEP, integration process in Southeast in Asia, I would say, 15 countries, the 10 ASEAN countries plus the big ones. That's a great opportunity for our companies. The integration process means that by investing in a country like Indonesia, our companies can have access to broader market. And we were discussing about the importance of logistics. Well, we are pretty sure that with a conducive environment under Omnibus Law, we are seeing more regulations that are in line with what the companies need for investment, even smaller ones. And the fact of working through investment in the region is going to be easier than exporting to a region where we have so important competitors. The main trading partners of Indonesia are Asian countries, and it is difficult to compete with them. It is better to focus on how we can establish presence, direct investment there, and work together with our local partners in order to tap into this greater Asian market.
Interesting point.
There are other frameworks. European. Yes, we were discussing as well on SIPA with you on other schemes that we have bilaterally to protect, promote investments. Those are good basis for increasing cooperation with Indonesia. And all our organizations are engaged in providing financing. That's another point that was raised before. That's important. Promotion activities. It is important to conduct trade delegations, visit fairs, and that's something the chambers are helping our companies to do together with our trade administration, with the government. And we, last but not least, these seminars, investing fora. We very much rely on cooperation with our peers. So I love to strengthen the ongoing cooperation with the Indonesian Chamber of Commerce. We have to create platforms for companies, for our business communities to get together, and we are ready to benefit from the recovery of international trade. International trade is recovering. We have to hope for the best, and maybe the shortening of global value chains will be downturn, and we will see under the new agenda, because there are sectors like obviously our sectors of interest range from infrastructures to food industries, from health,
yes,
to tourism, and of course in digitalization and sustainable energy transition. There are many opportunities, and we are ready to tap on them.
Yes, Mr. Rodolfo, I'm sure a lot of our attendees here would agree with that, and we like what you're saying about how we could share this market and how it's best to invest and also take a counterpart, a partner here in Indonesia. Now, moving on to Ms. Martini, as we see how COVID is going right now, we see a lot of countries now moving on towards the new normal and actually claiming that COVID is the condition is much better nationally in their countries. Will there be, as you see, will there be any other hindrance into establishing more works with European counterparts, especially in business, in the future?
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Yes. Well, let me say this. Yes, this is something that a challenge, for all of us. Our companies are actually dying to go out there to meet with their counterpart. Trade expos, trade missions are held up for so long, 1.5 years. But luckily now we heard, hopefully this summer we can resume this kind of activities, because it's very important. Many of our private sector saying that they just need to meet with them. It's not the same having Zoom meeting like this than meeting with them and just talk about future collaboration, business, and so on and so forth. So I think that's very important, and I welcome that. And then government is ready to facilitate. I just want to share that we have 46 what we call trade representative in 46 cities in the world. So please use them. I see a lot of questions here. Also, I'd like to get them in touch with our 46 trade offices, including in Europe. European cities has a few in comparison more than the others. Secondly, I think in terms of relationship EU and Indonesia, as you know, we are negotiating at the moment. Trade agreement, trade negotiation, Indonesia-EU CEPA, and a lot of hopes from our private sectors that because tariff is still a challenge to get into the market, with a few, although I know European tariff are quite low, but still major milestone will happen, especially with SMEs in food and beverage and so on. They need that. And then with that trade agreement, of course, I think Bu Sinta mentioned, this is about compliance of the standards that very high in Europe, but okay, as long as it's not discriminatory, our private sector, our exporter fulfill, but still we need to have a support for them. That's why even within this trade agreement itself, not only we discuss or negotiate on market access, which is tariff, but also trade facilitation to make sure the flow of trade between the two regions or two countries are seamless. And thirdly, is actually capacity building. This is actually Indonesia's champion in the trade agreement. I don't think many countries have that to be included in trade agreement, and this is very important. So this is where government to government can discuss. At the same time, parallelly, of course, the Chamber of Commerce, like Ibu Sinta here and Pak Montavio here, can always talk to each other. A relationship, business to business, business to consumer. Yes, it can happen, but in terms of government to government, it is also important to have a forum through this trade agreement. So I think I will stop there. Thank you.
Thank you for also answering one of the questions from our participants about the free trade agreement with Europe in the future. So I guess I'll just go straight to the questions that has been sent to us. The next one is for Bu Sinta, since we only have around, 8 minutes left. Now, Bu Sinta, the question for you is how regional trade agreements such as the RCEP will strengthen Indonesia's integration to the global supply chain. Bu Sinta.
Yeah, I think clearly when we talk about RCEP, the discussion that takes place is how can Indonesia take advantage of the RCEP agreement. I think it's a very, very ambitious agreement. And when we talk about this kind of stage of agreement, we need to understand that many countries will also take advantage of it. So I think the question will always be, can Indonesia be competitive enough to basically take advantage? And clearly, many of the homework, I think the government has and we appreciate the finalization of this agreement. And we have looked into, what kind of opportunities. We have done the analysis, of course, what kind of products and how Indonesia can bring products into the supply chain through the RCEP. But I think many of the homework comes back to Indonesia itself. I think, and we've discussed about this, that our readiness, that means we need to be able to deliver such products that can then be used as the part of the supply chains. And when we talk about export, right? And it's Indonesia right now, as you know, our position, we are still 70%, like I mentioned, are still our raw materials are still imported. So this is something that we need to really pay attention in how we can, we can shift our position from being an importer to actually develop our own upstream industry. And I think this is really key. And then, of course, the agreement itself can help us in bringing Indonesia position as we want as the global hub. So while we are identifying opportunities with specific products and how we can go in, this is also putting our we need to look into our competitiveness, right? And with our competitiveness lies also a number of aspects that is related to how our products can go into the supply chain. And I wanted to especially mention that it's for Indonesia. Of course, we are on the right track on progressing. We are looking into now already. We don't no longer want to export, let's say, natural resources, and then we go into added value as what government has always mentioned. Now we are moving into added value, and we are doing that. We are encouraging investment into this, but this will take time, right? And sometimes the question is how we can accelerate it, right?
Yes.
So we also work together, and this is why we also need to look at how we can work together. Can Indonesia also develop powerhouse? So we work together with other country and then export to a third country. Things like that we are also looking into. So we have to go beyond of the basic, how Indonesia can develop own products and then how we can export our market. But we can, when we look at supply chain, part of the supply chain is also working with other countries to go into a third country. So I think that's something that we need to pay very much attention. I think RCEP is again, it's a big agreement. I think the businesses, we are trying to get familiarized with the specific opportunities, how we can take and bring this and then socialize it to also our business. But again, I think time is something that we need to push. So we need to accelerate, definitely.
Okay, find a way to accelerate that. Thank you, Bu Sinta. Now, last question from the audience is, of course, this is for Mr. Montalvo. The last question is, how is the perception of Spanish business community about doing trade or investment in Indonesia, since most of the Spanish seems to prefer to operate inside EU countries and Latin America? Yes, you may answer, Mr. Montalvo.
Thank you, Tim. Well, that's a very relevant question, a very good question. I appreciate that it's been raised. Well, it's got to do with not only economic factors, but also with cultural factors. We feel very much comfortable in Europe. We feel very much comfortable as investors in Latin America. This is not, Latin America is not a great trade partner. It's more an investment partner for Spain. We have large investments, but it's critical for us, and we have a large presence. We were the first to arrive to Asia, to the Pacific, but we haven't quite finished to join forces with Southeast Asian countries. I was myself posted to Southeast Asia for 5 years, a long time ago, yes.
So you could identify what are still the problems here.
Yes, I suffered that. I suffered that. I was at that time in Kuala Lumpur, and we were doing an effort in conveying the very many opportunities, and companies have for the last 15 years started to see this as a market of opportunity. I have to say that it is important for us to see the progress in industrialization and in a more conducive framework in Indonesia. No, and our companies are eager to do that. I was talking to our ambassador in Indonesia. That was quite many years ago, the deputy in the embassy, and he has witnessed the great transformation of the country. It's incredible, no? So we are here to send this message to our companies. I think they're conscious of the need of looking at the Indo-Pacific region, where growth is going to be concentrated in the coming years. We cannot see only Asian countries in terms of competitors. I think we have to increasingly see them as partners. And it is true that we can cooperate in third markets, but when we think of third markets, is how can we partner with our Indonesian local companies to access and to have a base for the whole region. No, it's not something so far away. I think our companies are quite excited about the idea, but we need more information. And as my colleague said before, we need to regain mobility, because no matter how important electronic platforms are, internet platforms to connect, it is important to meet personally.
We agree. We all agree to that. Mr. Monsalvo, thank you very much. And also to our speakers, that is the last questions for the Q&A session. And to end this discussion, ladies and gentlemen, we will hear the closing remarks from the Director General for American and European Affairs of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Indonesia, His Excellency Ngurah Swadjaya. Excellency, the screen is yours.
Thank you very much. What an interesting discussion. I've been following the discussion since it was started at the beginning. Congratulations. But let me do my part here to close this event. Excellencies, distinguished panelists, participants, ladies and gentlemen, a very good evening to all of you in Indonesia, and good afternoon to the participants, the panelists, all of the participants in Europe. I would like certainly first of all to thank you all for your contribution, your enthusiasm, as well as a strong spirit of doing business in Indonesia, as well as promoting business interactions between Indonesia and Europe. I have seen a very strong commitment. I have learned a positive expectations from the discussions, as well as from the comments on the chat group. So this really encouraged us that in the past 2 days, we have again seen that the physical barrier should not and will not deter us from connecting each other and also to identify as well as to explore opportunities in our joint efforts to enhance the economic partnership, as well as to contribute to the economic recovery. Yesterday, we had 2 excellent panels on energy and health. There are obviously significant potentials to be tapped on energy transition, as well as also on strengthening the public health delivery, as well as quality, that offer a significant potential to the business sectors in Indonesia. And also, one thing that we have to also underline that the Indo-Pacific region, this is the concept that we have heard quite often in the past years here in the region, is already 60% of the global GDP, while ASEAN is the 5th largest, world largest economy in terms of the GDP. And Indonesia is the largest economy in ASEAN. So I think this certainly tells us from the discussion that we heard from the panelists that we heard about the RCEP, take for example, I think this really opened up a lot of opportunity for businesses, not only to interact in trade relations, but also to consider that investing in the region or diversifying their global value chains will certainly not only strengthen the resilience of the global value chains, but also expand their market potentials here in the region. Just now, the panel on trade and supply chains, we have heard just concluded before I deliver this remark, again presented very important information concerning the significant untapped potentials that could be utilized. I understand that the challenges are still there, but I think from the discussion and hopefully from the follow-up discussion interactions, we will be able to identify a number of concrete deliverables, a number of concrete cooperation that we will be able to promote in enhancing the cooperation between Europe and Indonesia. Collaboration with Indonesia, meaning that you will get a bigger regional market. The world's most populous countries are located in the Indo-Pacific region. And I think when we are talking about ASEAN, Indonesia, and the region, we also witness about the growing middle income and also young demographic, as well as the growing digital economic potential as well. I'm optimistic through our discussion yesterday and today, the business-to-business matching that we are facilitating during this event in the past 2 days, was reported that there are around 27 one-on-one business meetings involving businesses from Indonesia, as well as businesses at least from 7 countries in Europe, again, presenting significant potentials that we hope this is not going to only happening during this discussion, but certainly will continue. And I would like to take this opportunity that our colleague at the embassy, at the respective embassy where you are located, are more than happy to facilitate a continuous interactions between you and your potential partners in Indonesia. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to highlight some updates on the current position of Indonesia and Western and Southern Europe trade and investment. Based on the Indonesian trade statistic, our trade value last year stood at around $23 billion, or an increase of 28% from the previous year in 2020. I hope this positive growth in the middle of, despite the pandemic that we are also experiencing, despite the number of challenges that we are also still facing, including also on the issue of logistics, we'll be able to continue again this year and in the years in the coming years. On investment, I think this is also promising. The European investment to Indonesia is also taking into account the potential of the RCEP, the potential of the big regional market. In 2021, last year, the FDI realization to Indonesia from Western and Southern Europe increased 33.5%, from 1.94 billion in 2020 to 2.59 billion in 2021. With the easing of the restrictions in the post-pandemic situation, I believe there will be more investment coming to Indonesia. Those numbers are indeed a positive indication that we are on the right path to recover and also to see the increase of the economic cooperation on trade and investment between Indonesia and Europe. However, I am also certain that this number do not reflect the true economic potentials. And that is the reason why we are organizing this event starting from yesterday and also today. The Indonesia-Europe Business Forum is the first step, and hopefully it will be conducted annually in both virtual. If the situation allows, of course, we would be very happy to welcome all of you to come to Jakarta or any other place in Indonesia where we will also hopefully welcoming the international visitors to come. So while I'm talking about that, and I'm very also happy to inform you that tourism, international tourism in Bali has already been started to open. And I hope that we will be able to receive tourists coming to Bali as well as to other interesting places in Indonesia. So in the past 2 days, I would like to take note with appreciation that more than 650 participants have actively participated in our 2 days event, including more than 23 companies joining the B2B sessions. And I was informed as well that there are some more companies would like also to do the B2B sessions after the closing of this event. Of course, when we are doing it virtually, it could also be very possible to organize that. At the end of the business, at the end of the event, we have managed to take note that there are around $6.8 million in real transaction, at least agreed during the one-on-one business matching. And certainly we see around 40 million potential business transaction that can also be followed through in the continuing discussion that they are going to have. We have also made progress on investment. At the end of these events, we see some of the companies are indicating their interest to invest at around $5.8 million. I think this is certainly a very good indication, and we hope that this will certainly be materialized in days or if not weeks or months to come. One thing for sure, we will be here to help you. We have also our colleague, the Indonesia business partner, who are going to also assist you if you need their assistance. And I think we will be very happy to welcome you in your business undertaking in the region or in Indonesia on the 3 sectoral issues that we have already been discussing in the past 2 days. Finally, once again, let me thank you all. And also, I hope you are all keep yourself healthy in these challenging situations. But nonetheless, I think I would be very happy to see you and also to welcome you to the wonderful Indonesia. Thank you very much and enjoy the rest of the day for you in Europe and enjoy the evening for our colleague here in Indonesia. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency Ngurah Swadjaya, for closing our event today, for your closing remarks. Once again, thank you very much. And also, thank you for making this meeting possible here today. Now, I would also like to thank all our speakers today. Ms. Nimada Ayu Martini, thank you very much. Ibu Sinta Kamdani, thank you for joining us. Also, Ms. Barbara Beltrami Giacomello, who had to leave earlier. Thank you also for joining us. And also, Mr. Jaime Montalvo, thank you very much once again for joining us and sharing your thoughts and experiences with us, which I know will be useful for all the attendees in this event. And as the Director General said, we would love to see you in the next event, and hopefully it would be face-to-face here in some beautiful city here in Indonesia. That will be our wish. Now, thank you again to the Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs, His Excellency Mahendra Siregar, for opening our event as well. And most especially, thank you for all our participants. We hope this has been useful for you as we plan for further, more fruitful partnership between Indonesia and our European counterparts in the future in the effort to recover stronger. Now, I'm Timothy Marbun, wishing you all good health, stay safe. Thank you very much. We'll see you again. Bye-bye.
Thank you.